I spent 2 years saving for what should have been the happiest day of my life with Jessica, my fiancée of 3 years. We had our dream venue booked, honeymoon planned, and our entire future mapped out together. Then one morning I woke up to find her gone along with our entire $35,000 wedding fund. No goodbye, just a vague text saying she needed space. What happened next changed my life forever. Before I tell you how I got justice, let me know where you are watching from in the comments and hit subscribe if you want more stories like this. I met Jessica at my friend Tyler's 4th of July barbecue 3 summers ago. The moment she walked onto the patio carrying her homemade apple pie, I felt something shift inside me. She had this confidence that drew people in, laughing easily with strangers and making everyone feel special. When our eyes met across the crowded backyard, her smile made my heart skip. I worked up the courage to introduce myself, and we ended up talking until the fireworks started. "So what do you do when you are not crashing random barbecues?" she asked, her eyes reflecting the colorful bursts in the night sky. "Software development mostly. Not very exciting. But it pays the bills," I replied. "What about you, marketing?" "I help companies convince people they need things they probably don't," she joked. We exchanged numbers that night, and I called her the very next day to ask her out. Our first date was at this little jazz club downtown. She wore a blue dress that matched her eyes perfectly, and I remember thinking how lucky I was to be sitting across from her. The conversation flowed effortlessly for hours, and when I walked her to her door at the end of the night, our first kiss felt like the beginning of something significant. The next 6 months were filled with getting to know each other. We took things slowly, dating exclusively, but maintaining our separate lives. What I loved most about Jessica was how she balanced ambition with fun. During the week, she would work tirelessly on marketing campaigns, but weekends were sacred time for adventures and relaxation. After a year of dating, moving in together felt like the natural next step. Our apartment became our little sanctuary. We established routines together, discussed our future dreams, and supported each other through career challenges. I was making good progress as a software developer, while Jessica was climbing the corporate ladder at her marketing agency. We seemed perfectly matched in our ambitions and financial mindsets. We even started planning weekend getaways to different states, creating memories, and strengthening our bond with each trip. Meeting each other's families was a significant milestone. My parents immediately welcomed Jessica with open arms, though my mother did quietly mention she thought things were moving rather quickly. Jessica's family was more complex. Her father was largely absent, having remarried, and started a new family years ago. Her mother, Amanda, struck me as overly involved in Jessica's life, calling multiple times daily and having strong opinions about our relationship. Jessica always defended this as just how mom shows love, but I found Amanda controlling in ways that made me uncomfortable. After 2 years together, I knew Jessica was the woman I wanted to spend my life with. I saved for 3 months to buy the perfect engagement ring, a princess-cut diamond with sapphires on either side to match her eyes. The proposal took weeks to plan. I reserved the private back room at the jazz club, where we had our first date arranged for her favorite flowers to decorate the space, and hired the same musician who had played the night we met. When I dropped to one knee and asked her to marry me, Jessica's eyes filled with tears. "Yes, Emmanuel, yes," she exclaimed, throwing her arms around my neck. She immediately called her mother, then my parents, then what seemed like everyone in her contact list. That weekend, both our families gathered for a celebration dinner. Jessica could hardly eat, too busy showing off her ring and talking about wedding venues she had apparently been researching just in case. The wedding planning began almost immediately. We decided to create a dedicated savings account for the wedding expenses, agreeing to contribute equal amounts from each paycheck. Our target budget was $35,000 to cover both the wedding and honeymoon. Jessica had always dreamed of a lakeside wedding, so we booked Pine Lake Resort for a date 14 months away, giving us plenty of time to save and plan. I asked my brother to be my best man, while Jessica chose her childhood friend Natalie as maid of honor. Weekends that were once filled with relaxation and adventure were now dedicated to venue visits, cake tastings, and meetings with photographers. Jessica threw herself into the planning with incredible enthusiasm, creating elaborate Pinterest boards and spreadsheets to track every detail. I was happy to see her so excited, though sometimes I worried about how the actual marriage seemed secondary to the perfect wedding day. Looking back now, I should have noticed the warning signs. About 6 months before the wedding, Jessica became increasingly secretive about her phone. She would take calls in another room or quickly flip her phone over when I entered. When I asked about it, she accused me of not trusting her. She also began mentioning friends I had never met going out for girls' nights that would end with her coming home at unusual hours. We started having arguments about wedding expenses, too. While I wanted to stick to our budget, Jessica kept finding absolutely necessary additions that pushed our costs higher. She insisted on having her own access credentials for the joint wedding account, in case she needed to make vendor payments while I was busy. I agreed, wanting to be reasonable and trusting. When my parents gently suggested a prenuptial agreement might be prudent given our growing assets, Jessica reacted with such hurt and anger that I dropped the subject entirely to keep peace. Meanwhile, tensions with her mother grew as Amanda tried to override our decisions about everything from the guest list to the wedding colors. Jessica seemed torn between pleasing her mother and creating the day we wanted. The final month before the wedding was a whirlwind of activity. We had confirmed 150 guests, finalized payments to vendors, and prepared for the bachelor and bachelorette parties our friends had planned. I noticed Jessica becoming more distant, easily irritated by small things. She attributed it to wedding stress, and I tried to be understanding. 2 weeks before the wedding, Jessica suggested moving all our wedding money to a different account that offered better interest rates. I thought the timing was odd, but trusted her financial judgment. She had always been smart with money. 3 days before she disappeared, we had a romantic dinner at our favorite restaurant. Jessica seemed unusually emotional, taking more photos than normal, and staring at me intently throughout the meal. "What is it?" I asked, noticing the tears in her eyes. "Nothing," she said, reaching for my hand. "I will always remember this." Something in her tone should have alarmed me, but I interpreted it as pre-wedding emotion rather than goodbye. I woke up on a Tuesday morning to find Jessica's side of the bed empty. This was not unusual, as she sometimes went for early morning runs. I stretched, checked my phone, and headed to the bathroom to start my day. That is when I noticed her closet door ajar and several empty hangers where her favorite clothes used to be. My stomach tightened with the first twinge of anxiety. On the bathroom mirror, written in her lipstick, was a brief message. "I need time to figure things out. No explanation. No timeline. No real goodbye." I called her immediately, but the call went straight to voicemail. I texted with no response. The anxiety bloomed into full panic when I checked our joint wedding account online. Balance $0. All $35,000 we had saved gone. The last transaction showed a transfer to an account I did not recognize, executed the previous evening. I sat on the bathroom floor, phone in hand, trying to make sense of what was happening. This had to be a mistake, a bank error, something fixable. I called Jessica's best friend Natalie, who answered with obvious reluctance. "I am sorry, Emmanuel. I really cannot talk about this," she said before quickly hanging up. Next, I tried Jessica's workplace, only to be told by her confused colleague that Jessica had submitted her resignation a week earlier, effective immediately. No one had told me. When I called her mother, Amanda, I was met with cold formality. "Jessica is an adult who makes her own decisions." "I am sure she had her reasons," Amanda said, her tone suggesting she knew more than she was willing to share. I filed a missing person report, but the police officer took one look at the lipstick message and said it was clearly a voluntary departure. "Happens all the time," he said, with a shrug that minimized my entire collapsing world. Back at our apartment, I searched for clues. Her passport was missing from our safe, along with some jewelry and important documents. When I checked her laptop that she had left behind, I discovered she had cleared almost everything except for a browser history, showing searches for flights to Bali that had not been fully deleted. The final confirmation came the next day. My phone buzzed with a message from our mutual friend Jordan Mann. "I do not know how to tell you this, but you should see this." Attached was a screenshot from Jessica's Instagram story, showing her lounging on a tropical beach, cocktail in hand, with the caption, "Starting my new life number. No regrets." The photo was time-stamped from Bali, posted just hours after she had emptied our account. I stared at it until my eyes burned, trying to reconcile this betrayal with the woman I thought. I knew the woman I was supposed to marry in 11 days. I finally convinced Natalie to meet me for coffee. After much hesitation, she admitted Jessica had been planning this exit for months. She started moving small amounts weekly to her personal account. Natalie confessed, unable to meet my eyes. She said you were controlling, and that she deserved the money for putting up with you for 3 years. That was a lie. I had never controlled Jessica. If anything, I had given her too much freedom with our finances, trusted her too completely. The betrayal cut deeper, knowing she had not only stolen our money, but was rewriting our relationship history to justify her actions. The humiliation of canceling wedding arrangements was almost as painful as the betrayal itself. I had to call vendors, forfeit deposits, and explain to them that there would be no wedding. I sent awkward emails to 150 guests, many of whom had already purchased flights and accommodations. I returned the gifts that had already arrived, each one a reminder of the future that had been stolen from me. Financially, I was devastated. Beyond the stolen savings, I was now responsible for thousands in non-refundable deposits. I had to borrow money from my brother, just to make rent that month. My parents offered to help, their faces tight with anger on my behalf and concern for my well-being. The emotional impact was even worse than the financial one. I could not sleep, could not focus at work, could not stop replaying every moment of our relationship, looking for signs I had missed. My friends tried to distract me with outings and activities, but I moved through these like a ghost, present in body only. My brother Mark was the first to suggest legal action. "This is not just a breakup, Emmanuel," he said firmly. "This is theft and fraud. You need to fight back." At first I resisted. Some part of me still loved Jessica, still hoped there was an explanation that would make sense of this nightmare. That changed when I saw more photos online, these showing Jessica at a luxury resort with an unfamiliar man, his arm draped possessively around her waist. They were staying in an overwater bungalow that I recognized from our own honeymoon research. She was using our wedding money to fund a romantic getaway with someone else. Something inside me hardened. I picked up my phone and typed a message to Amanda. "Congratulations on raising a thief. Hope you are proud." Her response was immediate and threatening. "How dare you speak to me that way? Jessica deserves happiness after what she put up with. Leave them alone, or you will regret it." Them. Not her. Them. Amanda had known all along. The next morning I contacted an attorney named Stephanie, who specialized in fraud cases. During our consultation, she listened carefully to my story, occasionally taking notes and asking clarifying questions. "What we have here is clear evidence of fraud," Stephanie explained. "Creating a joint account with the stated purpose of wedding expenses, then emptying that account for personal use, constitutes criminal fraud, especially given the premeditation involved." We began gathering evidence. Bank statements showing regular deposits from both our accounts, contracts with wedding vendors, text messages discussing wedding plans, and emails confirming our honeymoon reservations. All of this demonstrated the mutual understanding that the money was designated for our wedding and shared future. Stephanie also explained that the circumstances made this a stronger case than a typical relationship financial dispute. The fact that she quit her job, secretly made arrangements to leave the country, and transferred the money immediately before disappearing shows clear intent, she said. Initially, the police were reluctant to get involved in what they viewed as a domestic dispute. However, after Stephanie presented the evidence package, we had compiled a detective named Rodriguez was assigned to the case. "Unfortunately, we see this type of situation more often than you would think," Detective Rodriguez told me. "But usually not with this level of planning and such a significant amount of money." The detective's investigation uncovered something that shocked me even further. Jessica had legally changed the account ownership a week before disappearing, removing my name entirely, while keeping my access credentials functional, so I would not notice the change. This was not just opportunistic theft. This was calculated fraud. The investigation took another, unexpected turn when Detective Rodriguez discovered a previous victim named Brad, who had experienced a similar situation with Jessica 3 years before we met. She had been engaged to him, briefly broken off the engagement after gaining access to his investment account and withdrawn a substantial sum. Brad had not pressed charges, accepting her family's partial repayment to avoid a lengthy legal process. Most disturbing of all, Jessica's mother had known about this previous incident. Amanda had helped negotiate the settlement with Brad, keeping everything quiet to protect her daughter. This pattern of behavior and her mother's enabling role explained the strange dynamic I had sensed between them. Digital evidence from cloud storage, Jessica had forgotten to disconnect, revealed notes and planning documents dating back months. She had researched countries with limited extradition treaties and calculated exactly how much money she could take without triggering automatic fraud alerts. As the evidence mounted, an international arrest warrant became a possibility. The detective managed to freeze Jessica's domestic accounts, though by that point they contained only minimal funds. Social media continued to provide evidence, as Jessica documented her lavish spending of our stolen money, apparently believing herself beyond reach. 2 months after her disappearance, we received unexpected news. Jessica was returning to the United States, unaware of the investigation that had been building in her absence. She was detained by customs officials at Los Angeles International Airport, based on the fraud alert in the system. I received a call from Detective Rodriguez late that night. "We have her in custody," he said simply. "She will be arraigned tomorrow on multiple charges of fraud and grand theft." The media quickly picked up the story, dubbing it the runaway bride theft. Overnight, Jessica's smiling face was on local news and crime websites. Her family faced public embarrassment as details emerged about their knowledge and potential complicity. Support came from unexpected quarters, including Jessica's cousin Tara, who contacted me privately. "I am so sorry about what Jessica did to you," she wrote. "This is not the first time the family has covered for her. They have been enabling this behavior since she was a teenager." Jessica faced multiple felony charges and initially maintained her innocence. In her first court appearance, she claimed I had verbally agreed the money was hers to use as needed. When confronted with the evidence of premeditation and her previous victim, her story changed to claiming I had been emotionally abusive, and she took the money as self-protection. There was zero truth to these accusations, and fortunately the prosecutor saw through them immediately. 3 days after her arraignment, I received a call from Martin Goldstein, Jessica's attorney. "My client would like to offer restitution to avoid a lengthy and expensive trial," he said smoothly. "She is prepared to return 40% of the funds in exchange for dropping all charges." The offer was insulting. "Tell your client I want 100% of my money back, plus legal fees," I replied. Over the following weeks, the pressure to settle increased. Some of my family members suggested I take whatever I could get and move on with my life. "Fighting this will just keep you tied to her longer," my mother reasoned. "Sometimes it is better to cut your losses." But I refused to be another victim who let Jessica escape consequences. Each time her lawyer called with a slightly improved offer, I declined. The evidence against Jessica continued to grow stronger as the forensic accounting revealed most of the money had already been spent on luxury accommodations, shopping sprees, and experiences with her new boyfriend, who had promptly disappeared when she was arrested. In a desperate move, Jessica's family offered to cover some of the costs from their own funds if I would agree to reduce charges. Amanda called me directly, her tone vastly different from our last interaction. "Please, Emmanuel, we will pay you back. Jessica made a terrible mistake, but she does not deserve to go to prison." This was not a mistake, I told her. This was calculated theft from someone she claimed to love. And you knew exactly who she was when you threatened me for calling her out. I decided to let the justice system take its course. After consultation with Stephanie and the prosecutor, I made it clear I would accept nothing less than full restitution and would testify in court if necessary. After 6 months of legal proceedings, Jessica finally accepted a plea deal. She pleaded guilty to fraud and grand theft, accepting a sentence that included full restitution of the stolen money plus my legal fees, 3 years of probation, and 400 hours of community service. In the courtroom, she offered what appeared to be a tearful apology. "I am deeply sorry for the pain I caused," she said, voice breaking. "I made a terrible mistake in a moment of confusion and fear." Having seen the extensive evidence of her months of planning, I recognized the performance for what it was. The judge evidently did too, noting in his sentencing remarks that her actions showed extraordinary calculation and callous disregard for the emotional and financial well-being of someone who trusted you implicitly. Through asset seizure and garnishment of her future wages, I eventually recovered about 80% of the stolen funds. While I would likely never see the rest, the vindication of having the legal system acknowledge and address the wrong done to me was worth more than the remaining money. The experience left deep scars, both financial and emotional. For months after the case concluded, I struggled with trust issues that affected every relationship in my life. Simple actions like checking my bank account would trigger anxiety attacks. I began seeing a therapist who specialized in betrayal trauma, slowly working through the complex emotions of grief, anger, and loss of security. My support network proved invaluable during this time. My brother Mark checked on me daily sometimes, just sitting quietly with me when I could not bear to talk. Colleagues covered for me on days when focusing on work seemed impossible. Friends made sure I was eating properly and getting out of the apartment that held so many painful memories. Gradually, I rebuilt my financial security. I created strict new protocols for my accounts, with multiple verification steps and alerts for any unusual activity. I took a financial management course that helped me feel more in control of my future. 6 months after Jessica's sentencing, I received an unexpected job offer with a significant salary increase, allowing me to replenish my depleted savings more quickly than anticipated. The emotional healing took longer than the financial recovery. I had to learn to trust my own judgment again, before I could consider trusting another person with my heart or finances. My therapist helped me recognize that Jessica's betrayal reflected her character, not mine, and that the warning signs I had missed were subtle by design. Con artists are successful precisely because they are good at making their targets feel secure and special, she explained. Recognizing red flags requires experience most honest people do not have. Gradually, I developed stronger boundaries and a healthier sense of financial independence. I rediscovered interests and hobbies I had set aside during my relationship with Jessica, joining a rock climbing gym, and reconnecting with old friends I had lost touch with. Dating again was challenging, but eventually, I found myself open to new connections. I was more cautious, certainly, but I refused to let Jessica's actions condemn me to a life of isolation and mistrust. About a year after the court case concluded, I met someone who understood my hesitance and respected the pace I needed to move at. We are still together, building trust day by day. The most surprising outcome of this painful chapter was discovering a strength I never knew I possessed. Standing up for myself against Jessica, her family, and even well-meaning friends, who urged me to just let it go, required a resolve I had not realized was within me. I learned that seeking justice is not the same as seeking revenge. My goal was never to hurt Jessica, but to hold her accountable for her actions and prevent her from doing the same to someone else. The legal system worked as it should, imposing consequences proportionate to her actions. The experience taught me to recognize red flags that once seemed invisible. Excessive secrecy, inconsistent stories, resistance to reasonable financial protections, and family patterns of enabling behavior are all warning signs I now understand. When viewed through rose-colored glasses, these red flags just look like flags, as the saying goes. Perhaps the most valuable lesson was learning the importance of maintaining independence, even within committed relationships. Love and trust are beautiful, but vulnerability requires safeguards. Separate accounts alongside joint ones, clear financial agreements, and transparent communication about money are not signs of mistrust, but of mutual respect and responsibility. I occasionally check Jessica's social media out of curiosity, Her life appears subdued compared to her brief period of stolen luxury. According to mutual acquaintances, she works at a small marketing firm, now living with her mother, while she continues to pay restitution. I feel no satisfaction in her diminished circumstances, only hope that she has learned something from the consequences of her actions. As for me, I am building a new life founded on authentic connections and hard-won wisdom. I am more cautious, but not bitter, more independent, but not isolated. I can even see the experience as valuable in its own painful way, showing me both the depths of betrayal and the heights of personal resilience. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself when others told you to let it go? Did you ever have to make the difficult choice between peace and justice? Share your story in the comments below. If this resonated with you, please hit the like button so more people can find this story, and subscribe to hear more real-life experiences that might help you navigate your own challenges. Thank you for listening. And remember, sometimes the hardest battles lead to the most important victories.